Good morning again. So let's start with today's discussion, right? So yesterday we discussed about full stack architecture, right? We started with full stack architecture, then we understood software development life cycle, right? How you can approach to create a software. Then we moved to HTML, right? We discussed some of the important elements and tags of HTML, right? Including media tags, HTML forms, right? That is again one of the important concept of HTML. Then we moved towards CSS, right? We saw all the basics of CSS, some basic properties of CSS, right? Then box model. And at the end of the session, we also discussed about layout algorithms, right? Layout modes, flow layout, positioning, float and clear, flexbox, grid. These are nothing but some flexbox. These are nothing but some layout modes in CSS, right? We understood that sometimes, same property generate different results in CSS, right? So the probably the reason can be layout modes, right? Some properties behave differently in different layout modes, right? And again, some properties works on some layout mode, but not all layout modes, right? So it is not all about CSS properties. We understood this thing yesterday, right? So continuing from there, let's now understand some of the layout modes, right? We discussed what is layout mode yesterday, but let's actually learn about some of the important layout modes, right? So we are going to discuss two layout modes. First is CSS positioning and second one is flexbox, right? Sorry. So let's try to understand CSS positioning first. Okay, so to define layout using CSS positioning, right? You can use four important values in positioning. One is static, second is relative, third is absolute, four is fixed, right? Static is again the default one, right? So whatever layout we see, it is already according to the static layout, right? So our focus will be on relative, absolute, as well as fixed, right? So for that, I already created one HTML file called positioning, right? And I have the boilerplate code. Just to save some time, I already created the boilerplate code. And what I did here, see, I just have one div with class container. And in this div, I have three boxes, B1, B2, and B3. And I applied some basic style. For example, for all three boxes, I have applied different background colors, right? And for all boxes, some width and height, including border. And also for container, I included width and height. So all the basic boilerplate style I have attached, right? Just to save some time. So let me run this file and let's see how it looks as of now. And then we'll apply positioning. Yes, so as of now, it is looking something like this. Yes, now it will be easy to understand. Okay. Right? So this is our B1, this is B2, and this is B3, right? So now let's do one thing on this B2. Let's apply some position. Let's change the layout mode of B2 to position, right? So for that, what you can write, you can use one CSS property called position. And let's say position, I'm applying static. What happened? Nothing happened. Why? Because it is already static position, right? It is already static position, so nothing will happen. But if you write relative, let me save this. And now what happened? Again, nothing happened. But actually something is happened. See, when we use any CSS positioning apart from static, right? Other than static, if we use relative, absolute, or fixed, we get access to four coordinate properties. What are those? Those are top, right, bottom, and left. I will repeat again. When we use CSS positioning, right? Position relative, absolute, or fixed, we get access to 4 coordinate properties. For static, it will not work. For static, it will not work. For other 3 CSS positioning, it will work. Right? So now the position is relative for this B2. Right? So can I apply these 4 properties here? Yes, I can. Let's try. Let's try. So for example, I am applying left 50 pixel. Okay, I'm saving the file and see what happened. From left, it pushed 50 pixel. See, from left, it pushed 50 pixel. If I write top 50, so see, from top, it pushed 50 pixel. That means the element came down. From top, it is getting pushed. Right? This is what relative positioning. And one thing, if you notice, whatever positioning it is applying, like left or top, it is from its current position. See, right now, let me get rid of this for now. See, right now, the current position is the position that you can see on the screen, right? Now, from that position, it will move 50%, 50 pixel, right? From that particular position, it will move 50 pixel. So from its current position, it is moving. This one point you need to remember, because when we learn absolute, then I'll clearly mention the difference between them, right? So this important point you need to remember, that from its current position, it is moving. Whatever direction you want to move, left, right, top, bottom, but from its current position, it will move. Okay, that's the key point that we need to underline. Now, you understood relative, right? So let's do one thing. Let's change the position to absolute now. Let's change the position to absolute. And I am hitting save. What happened? Where is B3? Okay, we'll answer this. Where is B3? Is it removed? What happened here? Yes. Where is B3? Any answers? Okay, let's try one thing. Let's apply position absolute to B3. Let's try that. So I'm applying position absolute to B3. Nothing happened. Let's do one more thing. Let's try and apply for B1, right? So position absolute. Again, see what is happening. Any idea? Anyone? See what happens here when you apply position absolute. Yes, yes. We'll share attendance link in a while, right? Goes behind one element. Okay, give the position. Okay, okay, fine. So see what is happening here. When we apply position absolute, that element basically comes out of the flow. That element is coming out of the flow. That means now you can consider that B2 is not part of our HTML flow. It came out of the flow. That means whatever the space that was occupied by B2, now it will be occupied by B3, right? Now it will be occupied by B3. Understanding? So B3 is there, but it is behind B2. Right? There is overlap between two boxes here. B3 is there, but it is behind B2. Right? Now let's try and apply some coordinate properties. Again, it is position absolute, right? So we get access to all these four coordinate properties, right? So let's try. Let's try maybe top 50 pixel. It is moving 50 pixel from top, but there is some strange behavior here. What happened here? Let's try 30 pixel. See what happened here. It moved 30 pixel from top, but from the viewport. Understanding? In case of relative, what was the case? It was moving, but according to its current position. Now again, it is moving for absolute, it is moving, but according to viewport. Right? So from top, from viewport, it is moving 30 pixel. Getting it? If I right left 30, so from left, it is moving 30 pixel. Right? But this positioning is according to the viewport and not the current position. There's the difference between relative and absolute. Right? But the next question is, for absolute, is it always about viewport? Will it be always according to viewport? No. The fact is, it is according to the positioned parent. Now, what does it mean by position parent? The parent having positioned relative, absolute or fixed. Some people think it is always relative, but no. Positioned parent could be anything. It could be relative, it could be absolute, or it could be fixed. Okay. So let's do one thing. See, we are applying position on this particular div, right? B2. We are applying on B2. What is the parent of B2? This container div. Is this container div positioned? Let's check. See, this is the container div styling. Can we see any display, any position property here? No, right? That means the parent is not positioned. Okay. What is the parent of container? Body. Can we see body is positioned in style? No. That means no parent is positioned. It could be any parent in the hierarchy, right? It is not that it should be the direct parent. No, that is not the case. For this B2, container can also be a parent, body can also be a parent, and HTML can also be a parent. Okay, so can you see any parent is positioned? No, no parent is positioned. That is why the positioning is according to the viewport. If no parent is positioned, that means the positioning will be according to viewport. Let's do one thing. Let's make this container positioned. So if I write position relative here, what happens? See, now according to the parent, according to this container, it is moving. Let me show you again. Let me get rid of these two values. Okay, I applied position absolute to B2. If I write left 30 pixel, so from left it is moving, but according to the parent. Which parent? Container parent. If I write top 30 again, so from top it moved. See, from here, see my mouse. From here, it is moving to 30 pixel. Okay, so to summarize, what is relative? Element does not come out of the flow. First thing, element does not come out of the flow, right? So it will stay in its original position. It will not lose its position. An element will move according to the current position. And if you talk about absolute, so what happens? Element comes out of the flow. And if it comes out of the flow, its space is not occupied. The space will be occupied by the next element, right? Because the element came out of the flow now. See, the B3 is behind the 2. I was saying, right, that B3 is behind B2. See, you can see now clearly, right? And how will be positioning in case of absolute? According to the positioned parent. And if there is no positioned parent, then it will be according to the viewport. I hope the difference is clear. Is it clear? Can I get some +1 in the chat? Srushti Raut ma'am, can you give any real life example of absolute position? Yes, see, this positioning, see now, right now we are using Flexbox, we are using grid, we are using Bootstrap grid, right? So maybe positioning will use less, but yes, sometimes it is useful. For example, you have, one advertisement in your website, right? And you want to show your advertisement in the right corner. You want to show advertisement in the right corner. So that time what you can do? You can make the position of that particular advertisement to absolute, and you can write right zero property. What you can do? You can write right zero. So from right corner, because it is according to viewport, right? If there are no position parent, so from right to zero, it will show in the right corner. Right? So it will move 0 pixel from right. That means it will move to right corner. So that could be one real-time example that you can use for absolute, right? But again, to achieve same functionality, there are better ways. There are better ways, right? We will see in Flexbox, we'll see in Bootstrap Grid. So there are better options. But yes, we can do something like that. Okay. Sorry. Good morning, Urvashi ma'am. No worries, no worries. We just started the session. We covered positioning property, right? Nothing much. And I'll quickly revise for you, right? So positioning, CSS positioning, there are four main properties, right? Static, relative, absolute, and fixed. Right? Static is the default one, right? Uh, Also, we should not even consider static element a positioned element, right? Because see, these coordinate properties are also not applying for static, right? It is a part of CSS positioning, but we generally don't consider, right? We only consider other values. Sorry. So let's do one thing. Let me first cover fixed, and then I will again repeat all these three. Okay, that works. Let me first cover fixed. Fixed is very similar to absolute. The only difference is in absolute and fixed, the only difference is in case of fixed, element will be positioned always according to the viewport. In case of absolute, what was the case? It is according to positioned parent. If not, then viewport. But for fixed, it is always according to the viewport. Let's understand with example. So I will remove everything also from container class. Now, instead of position absolute, let me write fixed. But before that, let me add some more content. It will make more sense then. So I'm writing one paragraph with maybe, a lorem 1000. I just generated paragraph of 1000 words. Now let's understand what is fixed positioning, right? So in this B2, now I am applying position fixed. What happened? Again, see, B2 came out of the flow. B3 is there, but behind B2, right? So the element came out of the flow. Same to position absolute, right? What is the difference? Difference is that positioning will be according to viewport always. So if you write top 50, that's right, 30. So the 30 pixel, you can see it is from viewport. From viewport, from top, it is 30 pixel, right? According to viewport. And it will always be according to viewport. There is nothing called position parent in case of position fixed. It has nothing to do with that. Fine. But why we should use fixed? Why I added this huge paragraph? See, now I am scrolling down the page. Can you notice the difference? Can you notice the difference? The position of B2 is fixed. That is the use of fixed positioning. Even when we scroll down the page, the position will be as it is. Right? That is the main use case of fixed. Now, where we can use this fixed? Can you give any example where we can use position fixed? In case of navigation bar of website, we can use this, right? Because navigation bar we want it to be fixed, right? Then in case of some chat box you want to include in your website, right? You can see some of the chat assistant chat box at the bottom right corner of website, right? And that is that its position is fixed. If you observe, its position is fixed, right? So that is the use case of fixed positioning, right? Yes, Srushtivan. If you want our advertisement to be fixed at one particular position, irrespective of scrolling down the page, we can again consider position fixed. Absolutely correct. Okay, fine. So I hope this positioning is clear, right? Right. To summarize, I'll repeat this, right? Urvashi ma'am, please pay attention. Let's repeat once again, right? In short. Okay. So position relative. What happens in case of relative? Element does not come out of the flow, right? That means it will occupy its original space, right? Now we get access to coordinate properties and the positioning will be according to the current position. If we talk about absolute, element comes out of the flow. That means its original place is not occupied, right? As it is coming out of the HTML flow, right? And the positioning will be according to the positioned parent. What do we mean by position parent? The parent having property having position relative, absolute or fixed. Not only relative, it can be relative, absolute or fixed, right? So the positioning will be according to the parent. And if there is no position parent, then it will be according to the viewport. And in case of fixed, it is always according to the viewport. That's the only difference between absolute and fixed, right? In case of fixed, the element will be fixed to that particular position, even when you scroll down the page. Fine. So that was about positioning, right? Now let's move ahead and let's now understand the next topic, which is CSS Flexbox. This is again one of the layout algorithm, right? So let's understand Flexbox. Now, see, Flexbox is, all about 4 or 5 things. It is mainly about main axis and cross axis. I will come to that, but there are some keywords that we need to understand in order to understand CSS Flexbox. Right? One is Flex container. Second is Flex items. Third is main axis, and fourth is cross axis. These are the 4 things we need to understand in order to learn CSS Flexbox, right? And Flex container and Flex item is very easy. It's very basic, but the main thing is understanding main axis and cross axis. CSS Flexbox revolves around these 2 things only. Right? If you understand these 2 things, Flexbox is very easy. Okay, so let's understand this. So I hope you can see my whiteboard here. And we are understanding Flexbox, right? So let's first draw Flex container. Remember, there are 4 things: Flex container, Flex item, main axis, and cross axis. So let's draw Flex container. So this is nothing but Flex container. Okay, now whatever items is there in this container, first item, second item, third item, right? So all these items are nothing but Flex items. Okay, again, one important thing. See, we are applying layout algorithms, right? We understood what layout algorithm is. Now, layout algorithms can be specified in two ways. Not two ways, we can say there are two possibilities. One is you can specify layout algorithm on the element itself for which you want to change the layout. For example, in case of positioning, where we were applying position on the B2. That means we want B2 to be laid out according to the new layout algorithm. So we are applying new layout algorithm on the element itself. And second possibility is that we can apply layout algorithm on the parent. On the parent. That means whatever the direct child will be for that parent, that direct children will be laid out according to that layout mode. In case of Flexbox, what do we want? We want that these children should be laid out according to Flexbox, but we do not apply flex to this item directly. Instead, what we do, we apply display flex on this parent container, right? So sometimes you need to write directly on the element, and for some layout algorithms, you need to specify on the parent. In case of Flexbox, we need to specify on the parent. Okay, so if you write display flex, right, to get Flexbox layout, we use property display flex. So when you write display flex on this parent container, it is not the container that is laid out using display flex. It is their children which will apply, for which display flex will be applied, right? So what will be the position of this parent, entire parent? It will be flow, because flow is the default layout. Remember from yesterday's session, flow is the default layout. So when you write display flex to this parent, the parent's layout will be flow only. Their children will be Flexbox. Fine. I hope this thing is clear. So let's now understand main axis and cross axis. Now you know what flex container is and what flex item is, right? So let's now understand main axis and cross axis. See, by default for Flexbox, the main axis is this horizontal. This is the start and this is the end. Left side it will start and right side it will end. This is main axis. This is what main axis is. And cross axis will be vertical. It will start from top and it ends on bottom. This is cross axis. This is the default axis. Of course, you can change the direction of axis, that we will see. But by default, this is the case. Yes, I hope you can hear me. I lost network connection in between. I hope it's fine now.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you, Vedi ma'am. Yeah. Thank you, Tapas sir, for your feedback. And thank you all for confirmation. Yes, we are going to share attendance link in a while, right? Just wait for some more minutes and we are going to share it. Okay. So this is Flexbox, right? So by default, all your flex items will arrange itself towards the start of the main axis. So see, right now we have two flex items, right? So it is starting from here. See, at the start of main axis, and on the cross axis, it covers entire height, 100% of the height. This is the default nature, right? This is the default nature. Let's see this in action. Because right now we are comfortable with what main axis, what cross axis is, and what is the default behavior, right? Default behavior. What is default behavior? On main axis, it will be arranged, right? It gets bunched up at the start. And on cross axis, it takes 100% of the height. Let's see this in action. So I'll close this thing, and here I'll close this positioning file, and I have Flexbox. And again, I have the same boilerplate code that I had in position. Same thing I have here. Just I changed the class names, right? Just to make it more meaningful, right? And to understand it better. See, I named this Flex Container. I named this Flex Container, right? Remember, there are two things, Flex Container and Flex Item. So this is Flex Container, and all these three are Flex Items, right? In case of positioning, I use the same thing, right? Okay, so that you can differentiate how easy it is to work with Flexbox instead of positioning, right? Of course, positioning is important, but after Flexbox in Grid, we don't use it that much, right? That is why I'm taking the same layout, same UI, so that you can differentiate between them, right? And again, some boilerplate style, right? Same for Flex Container, I give some height, border, same thing. So let's run this file. And again, it is the same layout as we had in positioning. Right. Now, let's apply display flex. Where we will apply display flex? On the parent. So on this flex container, I will apply display flex. Right. Let's save this. And now you will see the default behavior of display flex. See, this is the default behavior of display flex. Elements are arranged on the main axis at the start. Can you see? Elements are arranged on the main axis at the start. And on cross axis, it should take 100% of the width. Remember, I told you that on cross axis, it should take 100% of the height, but it is not. Why? Because I'm manually specifying the height. If you manually specifying the height, then of course it is not going to show the default nature. So let me comment this height for now, just to show you the default behavior. So I commented the height for all these three items, right? And see, this is the default nature, right? Let me show that once again. This is the main axis. On the main axis, elements are stacked, elements are bunched up from the start, at the start. And on the main axis, it is taking, on the cross axis, it is taking 100% of the space, 100% of the height. Okay, clear up to this point? Yes, faculties, up to this point, is it clear to everyone? Shall we move ahead? Okay, okay. Thank you for response. So let's move ahead and let's understand it further. Now, we understood that Flexbox revolves around main axis and cross axis. And now that we understand what main axis and cross axis is, now it's easy to understand Flexbox, remaining part of Flexbox, right? So let's apply some flex properties, right? How many of you have heard that if we want to position our flex items horizontally, we can use justify content? How many of you have heard this thing? That if you want to position our flex items horizontally, right, we can use justify content property. How many of you know this? Yes, so that is true actually, but not always. Instead, I will modify this answer like this, that justify content we can use, but not always to position it horizontally, to position items horizontally. Instead, I will say it positions the item on the main axis. I will change the statement to main axis instead of horizontal. Why? Let's see this. So if I write justify content, for example, center. I wrote justify content, for example, center. So see, all three elements are now in center. Let me get back the height 100 pixel, right? So see, horizontally, my items are now in center. So it is moving horizontally, right? If I write here flex end, so horizontally it is at the end, right? So the definition is correct that justify content is used to move our items horizontally, right? But I will say it is moving not horizontally, it is moving on main axis. Remember, I told you that we can change the direction of main axis. So what happens when you change the direction of main axis? Can we again say that it is moving on the horizontal axis? No, then we cannot say that. If we change the direction of main axis, let's change the direction of main axis actually, right? So to change the direction of main axis, you can use flex direction property and you can use column. Right now it was row. By default, flex direction is row. And if flex direction is row, you know the direction of main axis and cross axis. Right? But now I change the flex direction to column. Now I change the flex direction to column. So now what will happen? Now what will happen? What will be the main axis? Main axis will be vertical now. Main axis will be vertical now. And cross axis will be horizontal because I changed the direction. Right? So now justify content, what it will do? Is it again going to move elements horizontally? No. Now it is going to move elements vertically because now I change the main axis. So justify content is about main axis. It is not about horizontal and vertical. It is about main axis. Whatever the direction of main axis is, it will according to move elements, right? So see, I changed flex direction column, right? And now let's see the output. See, it is at the flex end, but this time vertically and not horizontally, right? So now we'll never say that justify content move elements horizontally. It moves element on the main axis, right? I hope you understand this and it makes sense. Okay, let me comment down this flex direction column, right? So again, we are on the flex direction row. That is the default one. Okay, we understood that to move, let me again get it back to center. So to move items on main axis, we use justify content. But what if we want to move items on the cross axis? So very simple, you can use align items. You can use align items. And if you write align item centers, that means vertically, right? For our case, vertically, but I should say on cross axis, it will be at the center. See, now vertically also on the cross axis also, it is in center. Right. So again, align items works on cross axis. It is not about horizontal vertical again. Right. We should not say align items move elements on vertical axis. We should not say that. Right. We should say align items move elements on the cross axis. Right. Again, there are some other options that you can explore. Right. Align items, again start and flex start, flex end, that you can explore, but you understand the point, right? How it is working. Understood, everyone? Shall we move ahead? Is Flexbox properties that we discussed are clear and all the model of Flexbox is clear to you? Okay, fine. Thank you for confirmation. What about others? Is it clear to all? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tushar, sir. Thank you, Srushti, ma'am. Fine, thank you, everyone. So let's now move ahead and let's see what is next. So next is semantic elements. And anyone know what is semantic elements? Any idea what is semantic elements? Now I'll close this whiteboard. We don't require it for some time now. Yes, what is semantic elements? Anyone? Okay, so semantic elements are elements which add some meaning, which represent some meaning of the content they are containing, right? If we take an example of image tag, let's take an example of image tag. So image tag, we are sure that it is going to contain an image. If you take an example of nav bar, right? So for that, we have one element called nav. So if we are writing navigation bar inside nav tag, that means we know that this nav tag contains navigation bar only. If we use header tag, so that means we know that header tag is going to contain the header of the website. It is for us also, and it is for browser also, for search engines also. Search engine can also know that this component, that the part that you are writing, it is about header, right? So it can better rank your website. So for SEO perspective also, and for us, for developers also, it is always a good practice to use semantic elements wherever possible. Remember, we used divs. We used divs so many times. Is div semantic element? What do you think? Is div semantic element? Yes, is div semantic element? What do you think? Semantic element is an element which represent the meaning of the content. Non-semantic, right? Because div is just a separator. It's just a, we can say a division, right? A component, nothing else, right? We can write div dot header. We can write div dot nav. We can write div dot main, right? So div does not show what it is going to contain. That is why div is not a semantic element. Right? Semantic elements are introduced in HTML5. Right? Before HTML5 till HTML4, we were using div. For each portion of our website, we use div. But now, as we have semantic elements, we can use them wherever possible. Right? So div is non-semantic. Right? Same for span. Span is also non-semantic. What is span? Span is again one container, but it is inline container. Div is block container. Right? Block element means it takes 100% of the width by default. Right? And inline elements mean it takes the width according to the content. Whatever the content size is, content width is, same width will be taken by the element. Span is inline container and div is block container. Still, we use divs at so many places, right? But it is non-semantic. We need to remember this. It is non-semantic. Okay. Now let's do one thing. Let's do this activity called static web page and understand how we can use semantic elements. Right. So let's create one single page static website. Right. So let me create one. Okay, I already have the new file static webpage.html. This file is empty, right? So let me add boilerplate code and I'll quickly write the HTML and CSS for this particular web page, right? Whatever things we are going to write, everything we already know, right? That is why, well, I'll go a bit fast here. Okay. So let's start by writing HTML body. But before that, let me give the title to something like my website. Okay, like this. Okay. So see, in body, I want to write three things. One is header. Okay. So see, now I'm using semantic elements. I want to write header, I want to write main, and I want to write footer. These three things I want to write. So see, now I'm using semantic elements. Header, main, and footer. All are semantic elements, right? Because it shows the meaning of the content they will have, right? So let's start by writing header. Okay, so in header, I just want to give title of my website. For example, my website title is my website. Okay, and let's write footer also. So in footer, I want to write something like 2024, my website, right? And maybe all rights reserved, something like this. Okay, so my header and footer is ready. Now let me write main. Now in main, let's say there are two sections. Let's say there are two sections. So let me write section tag here. Section is also one semantic element, right? So the whole purpose of this activity is to show you the semantic element, how you can use semantic elements, right? If it was HTML4, what we could write? We could write div with ID header. We could write div with ID main. We could write div with class section. We could write div with ID footer, right? Let's write first section. And let's say in this section, I have one title with H2 and one paragraph. Right. So the title, let's write welcome to my website. Something like this. And let's add one paragraph that this is a static web page, something like this. Okay. And let's write another section. Again, in this section also, I'll write H2. Let's give title something like why use semantic elements, right? And let's write paragraph. So let's write the answer that they provide meaning to browsers, search engines, right? Let's write up to this. Okay, so my structure is ready. My HTML is ready actually. Let's try and run this. So right now it is looking something like this. So now what we'll do, we'll add some basic style to it, right? And we'll make it a proper static website, proper static web page, right? So again, we should create another CSS file, but for just tutorial purpose, I'll write internal CSS only, right? So that you can see that for which part of HTML I'm writing CSS. Okay, so let's first style body. Okay, now for entire body, I want margin 0 and padding 0. Remember, I told you that browser adds some default padding and margin, right? So I don't want that. That is why I'm writing margin 0 and padding 0 in the body itself. And if you want to change the background color of body, we can do that. So let me change the background color. For example, F2, F2, F2. Yes, it's a light gray color. So yes, it will work. Yes, and what is this way of giving color? So you can use hexadecimal way also to provide color instead of writing just name, for example, gray. Instead of doing this, you can use hexadecimal value so that you get more variations of the color. You can of course change it if you hover on this tool, right? In VS Code, you can change the color from here also, right? So this is hexadecimal. This first two letter denotes red, second two green, and last two blue. And as it is hexadecimal, you can use 0 to 9 and A to F. Fine. So my body is ready. Now let's style header. Okay. For header also, let me add some background color. Let's give some dark background. Right. So I'm writing 333. Now, if it is hexadecimal, here I was writing 6 letters, but now I'm writing 3. So what does that mean? If I write T letter, that means it is 333333. right? So if first and second letter are same, you can just write it once. Fine. So instead of 33, I'm writing 3 basically, right? So yes, after this, let's add some text color also. So text color somewhat like white, so FFF. And if you want to give some padding, we can give, let's say 10 pixel, and also write text align center so that we get all the text in the center. And see, my header is completely ready now, right? Just observe how I'm manipulating the HTML, the CSS, right? How I'm writing the CSS. Okay. After header, we are going to write the same style for footer also. So let me write footer first. Same style. But if you are going to write the same style, I can directly use here grouping selector, right? But let's not do that. Let's write separately and let's add some 2-3 extra properties also, right? So again, the background color here, I'll write the same 333, whatever I applied in the header part, and color again, I'll write FFF, right? Kind of white color, and padding, let's say 10 pixel, right? And again, text align center, right? Okay, so see, my footer is also ready. But what I want to do, I want this footer at the end of the website, at the end of the page, at the bottom of the page. So what I can do? Can I use positioning? Can I use position absolute? Because I want it at the bottom. So can I use that? Yes, we can use that. Or can we use position fixed? Yes, that is also we can do because it is same as absolute. That is we can do. And one advantage that we get is even when we scroll down the page, its position will be fixed. So that is one added advantage, right? If we use position fixed, otherwise there is no difference in absolute and fixed, right? So let's use position fixed here. So I will write position fixed. You can also write position absolute. And I'll write bottom 0 because from bottom I will write 0 so that it fixed on the bottom part. And width you can write 100% if you want. It is already 100% as it is a block element, but you can write. So see, this is how my footer is looking now. Okay, and let's now finally position this to section, right? So let's do one thing. For the main, what we can do, let's start writing actually, and we'll see what all we can do here. So in main, first let me change the width. I think 800 pixels should work. It is not making any change now, but let's do one thing. Let's put it in the center. So to put it in the center, again, I can use Flexbox. That is one option, right? What you can do on this main, you can write display flex and both the section will become the children of this main, right? So this will be according to the display flexbox layout. But right now, I'm not using flexbox. Instead, to get it in the center, I'm using margin property. So remember, if I use two values here, for example, 20 pixel and some other value, for example, auto. So this will be for top bottom and this will be for left and right, right? So from top and bottom, 20 pixel margin will be there and this is auto. That means horizontally, right? It will be in the center. If you write auto, that means horizontally it will be in the center. Let's see. Now it is in the center. I specified width of 800 pixel of the entire main. That is why you are not getting it in the exact center, right? Because this is not the only area of this container, right? This is 800 pixel width is there of this container, of this main, right? Okay. Now let's add some padding if you want, 20 pixel, for example, and let's change the background color to make it look bit different. And let's give it white. Yes, now it is looking just fine. And now you can see this 800 pixel width. Okay, so this entire main is in the center, not just this content. These are nothing but two sections of this main. Okay, so our static web page is ready. Right? I hope you understood this. Okay. If you guys have any doubts, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, let's move to the JavaScript part. Right? Is it clear, everyone, or you have any doubts? Yes, Shrishti ma'am. Fixed is better, and that's why we use fixed. But before moving ahead, I think we are going to share attendance now in the chat. Yes, Vidhi ma'am.
Yes, absolutely. So I
Okay.
request all the participants to please mark your presence for the morning session. In the chat box, I have shared the attendance form with you. I request all the participants to please mark your presence in this Google form for the morning session. Whenever you are marking your presence, please make sure that you are providing the same mail ID which you have provided for the LMS registration. And there is a one humble request that whenever we are in the session, at any time we can share the attendance. So you need to be very attentive. So please do not ask for the attendance link again and again in the chat box, because that is a little bit disturbing. I request all the participants to please turn on your camera so that I can click the group photograph. I hope I am audible properly to you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
Yes, yes.
Great, great to see you guys. Smile, please. Okay, I have clicked your photograph. You guys can now turn off your camera. I have clicked your photograph. You guys can now turn off your camera. And in the chat box, again, I'm sharing the link with you so that you guys can mark your presence. So I request everyone to please mark your presence for today's morning session, as attendance is one of the important criteria for getting the completion certificate. You need to maintain at least 60% attendance on a regular basis. So please make sure that you are marking your presence in this Google form. Here we will just wait for 2 to 3 minutes so that you can mark your presence, and then we will continue with the technical training. Yes, sure, Professor S.H. Chavan, sir or ma'am. In the chat box, I have shared the link again. Please see to this and mark your presence. Also, I want to inform you that in the afternoon session, I'm going to demonstrate LMS, that is the learning management portal, right? Through which you will be able to access the study material. Also, you will be able to access the recorded sessions. Also, that is the platform where you are going to give your assessments and you will receive your certificate, right? So how you can access it, how you can log in, what is your credentials, which mail ID you have provided, all those detailed information regarding the LMS will be provided in the afternoon session. So please make sure that without fail you are attending that session, because during the afternoon session you will get to know that whether you are part of this FTP or not, whether your account is created or not, right? So please make sure that you are attending the afternoon session without fail, right? So I request everyone to please mark your presence in the Google form, which is shared in the chat box. Again, I'm sharing the form with you so that if anyone has not marked their presence, then they can mark it. We are going to wait for another 2 minutes and then we'll continue with the technical training. Yes, thank you, Swati ma'am, for your confirmation.
Those who are done with marking your attendance, I shared one link in the chat, right? That link is to download Node.js, right? You can start downloading it, right? While we are waiting for others to mark attendance, you can just start download Node.js. I'll let you know why we are using this, okay? But at least you can download it now.
Excuse me, sir. Should we have to click on LTS while downloading?
Yes, Sumedha ma'am, you can go with LTS version.
LTS, right?
Yes, yes. Latest will also work, but let's go with LTS.
Okay. LTS, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Rakesh sir, I have shared the link again in the chat box, so you can mark your attendance in this Google form.
होगा
त्यांचं इनिशिएशन होतं.
हाँ
सुमेधा को इधर बुलाती हूँ. मैंने मैडम वो ना वर्कशॉप कर रही है और वो
I hope everyone has marked their presence. So I just want the confirmation. If yes, then you can raise your hand. You can write in a chat box. You can react using thumbs up. Okay, great. Great. Great to see the responses. So yes, I think you can continue with the technical training, Jai sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am. So I'm again sharing the link to download Node.js, right? You can download it and you can install it, right? You just need to like next, and it will be installed, right? So now I'm again sharing my screen. We are not learning Node.js here, but we require it because we need NPM, right? And for one another purpose also, I'll let you know. Okay, I'm sharing attendance link once again. All right. Let's get back to JavaScript. Right. So from yesterday's session, we all know that why we are using JavaScript, right? So I'll directly move to adding JavaScript with HTML, right? So let's create one HTML file and let's try to add JavaScript into it. Okay, so I'll create one HTML file. Let's say adding JavaScript.html. This is the file name. And here I'm going to attach my JavaScript, right? So JavaScript we generally write at the end of the body. At the end of the body, inside script tag, we write our JavaScript. Okay. So for example, if I write hello world, right? So alert hello world. Let's start with hello world only. So this is the script tag, right? Which we wrote in the at the end of the body. Why? So that whatever HTML is there in your body tag, that renders first and then JavaScript gets applied on those elements. That is the reason we write JavaScript at the end of the body. Right? Now let's run this file. So again, I will right click and I will click on open with live server. And you can see the alert window, alert pop-up has displayed here with hello world message. Right? Now I will commit this and I will write console.log hello world. Now let's see the output again. Let me refresh this and you can see there is no hello world showing here, right? So what you can do, right click on inspect, right? It will open developer tools, right? And here go to console. See, next to elements, you can see console tab. Go to console and here you can see the hello world message, right? Now, JavaScript can run in browser. That is why whatever JavaScript we are writing here, we are getting output in the browser console, right? In console directly you can write JavaScript. For example, if you write 5 plus 3, you are going to get 8. If you write 8 into 9 plus 2, you are going to get the result. You can write JavaScript in the console. You can run JavaScript in the console of the browser, right? So what will happen here, whatever JavaScript we write here will again go to browser and will check the result here. For example, if I write console.log JavaScript is amazing, something like this, right? So I need to again go to console and I need to check the result. This is one option, but another better option we can use is Node.js. The reason why I asked you to download and install Node.js, right? Coming back to the point that JavaScript we can run inside browser, right? But JavaScript we can run outside of the browser also. Where? Inside Node.js. Inside Node.js, you can execute, you can run your JavaScript. Right? So Node.js is not a language, right? Some people think that it is a language. It is not a language. It is a runtime environment, just like browser. Browser is also runtime environment of JavaScript. That means you can run JavaScript in browser. So as Node.js is also runtime environment of JavaScript, you can run your JavaScript in Node.js. Okay, so can we do one thing? Can we install Node.js in our local system so that we can run JavaScript in our local system, right? So we don't need to come to browser frequently to see our output, to see our result, right? So that is why we downloaded and we installed Node.js. Okay, fine. Yes, again, there are some browser specific things, right? There are some browser specific things that you cannot run on Node.js, that you need to run on your browser, right? But for today's session, everything that we are going to write is just pure JavaScript. It has nothing to do with browser specific things. So that's why we are going to use Node.js. For example, this alert function you cannot run on Node.js, right? See, both are running JavaScript, but both are having some extra features. Browser is also having some extra features that Node.js do not have. And Node.js is also having some things, some features that browser does not have. Right? So this alert function is not going to work on Node.js. So to write alert function, you always use browser. Right? Fine. So now you know what is the use of alert function, and console.log is just to print anything on the console. Right? Now, this JavaScript we wrote is called as internal JavaScript because in the HTML file only we are writing JavaScript. But again, you can use external JavaScript. So I'll create one external file, right? And the name I will give maybe script.js, right? And here you can write your JavaScript. For example, you can write hello world here. And now you need to include this JavaScript file into this HTML, right? So how you can do that? Let me comment this entire thing. Again, you need to use script tag, but this time you are going to use one attribute called src, and here you can write the path of your JavaScript file, and that is going to work the same. Let me refresh this once, and you can see hello world here in the console, right? So this was about how you can include JavaScript, right? I hope by now your Node.js is downloaded, right? So I'll wait for 2 minutes so that you can install it, right? So you can install it and then we can move ahead. I don't want you to miss out anything. So I will wait for 2 minutes, right? By now your download should be completed and now you can install that setup, right? That exe file. So I'll wait for 2 minutes and let me know once your Node.js is installed. If it is already installed, then also you can type yes in the chat or type done in the chat so that I can come to know that how many of you have already. Okay, let's wait for just 2 minutes. Meanwhile, if you have anything, if you have any doubts, please ask, or if you want to share anything, please share. Whatever JavaScript I'll be writing in this script.js, right? And I will run JavaScript in Node now, not in browser. Right now we are executing in browser, but now we'll see the output in the node. Now my system has node, right? So I can use it. Okay. Okay, I can see so many done in the chat. Let's wait for 1 more minute. So see, this will be our flow in JavaScript. We covered introduction and adding JavaScript, right? Now next we are going to see variables and data types. And then control statement. Control statement is nothing but your conditional statement like if else and switch, and iterative statements, the loops, for loop, while loop, and do while loop. But we all know, right, one or other programming language, be it Java, be it Python, be it C, C++, or any other one, right? So we all are aware of these things, if else and these three common loops, right? For loop, while loop, and do while loop. So we will not cover that, right? Because we already know that, right? So instead we can focus on some other important things, right? For example, functions. Functions are also there in other languages, right? But JavaScript functions behave differently. That is why we are going to learn functions in detail, right? But if else and loops, it is the same as other languages. Even syntax is same with most of the languages like Java, right? Just a variable keyword will be different that I'm going to show you. Right, after functions, we'll see arrays and objects. Very important thing. I can say the most important thing in fundamentals of JavaScript. Right, in React also we are going to use it a lot of times. And then we'll see document object model. Right, how using JavaScript you can manipulate HTML and CSS. And then event. I'll explain you what event is and how you can handle it. Then we'll move to some of the advanced JavaScript, right? The features of ES6 like rest and spread operator, for of loop, right? For of loop is also part of iterative statement, but for of loop is not there in all the programming languages, right? So that is why we are covering for of loop. It's very easy to use for of loop other instead of traditional for loop, but we are going to cover that. And then template string, then two higher order methods, for each method and map method. Again, very important thing. Most important is map method. Then we'll see whatever we did with document object model, right? How you can do the same thing using jQuery, right? And after that, if we still have time, I think we will not have much time after that. So from here, asynchronous JavaScript, we are going to cover in the next session. Okay, so I hope Node.js is installed now. I was just waiting for you guys to install Node.js. So now I think we are good to move ahead. So let's start with variables and data types. Right? So I'll comment this and let me write variables and data types. Right? So what are the primitive data types in JavaScript? Right? One is number, second is string. For some languages, string is non-primitive data type like Java. Right? If you are coming from Java background, you will know this. You might be aware of this, that string is non-primitive there. Right? So number, string, boolean, null, as well as undefined. Okay. And how you can declare variable? Before that, what is primitive data type? These are data types which are immutable. You cannot change the value of these data types. For example, number can be 5, right? One value of number data type can be 5, right? So you cannot change 5. Can you change 5? You cannot modify 5. You can replace 5 with 6. That is possible. But you cannot make 6 out of 5. That is not possible. These are whole values. Primitive values are whole values. You cannot mutate them. You cannot change them. Right? That is why they are called primitive data types. Right? String is also primitive. In JavaScript, string is also primitive. You cannot modify string. You can, of course, replace the string. You can reassign, but you cannot modify. Right? In Java also, Java string is non-primitive, right? In Java, string is non-primitive, but there also it is immutable. Again, if you are coming from Java background, you know this, right? That it is immutable. Right? It is non-primitive, but still it is immutable. How it is achieving this immutability? Using the concept called as string pool, right? But let's not go there. Let's focus on JavaScript. So these are the primitive values. Now, how to declare a variable? Using var keyword. So I can write var a equal to 5. JavaScript follows dynamic typing. Right? That means you don't need to specify the data type. You don't need to write number 5. You can directly write verify, and JavaScript will identify what is the type of the data. Okay. There are other two keywords also, let and const, that you can use. For example, let b is equal to 10. And there is one more called const. So let's say const c is equal to 20. Right? What is the difference between let and const? What is the difference? Const values you cannot reassign. You cannot reassign const values. Actually, there are 2-3 things. Let me explain you in detail. So let's create one table here. So just give me a moment. Let me create this table. And let's say there are 3 keywords, right? Where, let, and const. Let me differentiate them. So there is something called redeclaration, and there is something called reassignment. Okay, now in case of where, redeclaration is possible. In case of where, redeclaration is possible. I'll write yes. In case of where redeclaration is possible. What does that mean? So it means that I wrote where a equal to 5, right? So I can write where a is equal to 10. That is nothing but redeclaration. You can redeclare the same variable. Right? But in case of let and const, redeclaration is not possible. Now, if we talk about reassignment, in case of where, reassignment is possible. For example, if you write where a equal to 5, you can change the value of a to 10. This is called reassignment. This is possible in case of where. This is possible in case of let as well. This is possible in case of let as well, but it is not possible in case of const. Right? So const values you cannot reassign. For example, if you want to write birth year of a person, right? So birth year is not going to change. You are never going to reassign that value. So you can use const. If you are taking value of pi, so value of pi will always be 3.14, right? So it is not going to change. So that time you can use const. Where keyword we should avoid as much as we can, right? We should always use let and const. Right? There is also one major difference between where, let, and const. Why let and const were introduced in ES6, right? ES6 is nothing but the version of JavaScript, right? ECMAScript 2015. So there let and const were introduced, right? Now there is a difference of scope also. The scope of let, where, and const are different, right? But that is a huge topic, a bit lengthy topic. So we'll cover if we get some extra time, right, towards the end. But for now, it is just important to understand these things, right? These differences you should remember as of now, right? Okay, so now you know how you can declare variables. So I will comment this, and here, for example, I am writing a equal to 5. Now, what to do to print this variable? So you can use console log of a. Now, I want to run this file, but this time I want to run this using Node.js. So what you can do, you can open terminal. VS Code has built-in support of terminal. See here, terminal. You can click terminal and click on open terminal. And here you can write node. You can write node and your file name script.js. You can see 5 is printed because I'm printing a and the value of a is 5. Semicolon is optional in JavaScript. Right? So you can use this node command, and using Node.js, I'm running JavaScript in my system instead of browser. Right? So it's very easy to work with JavaScript now because whatever we write below that, we are going to see the output. Okay, that's the only reason I asked you to download Node.js in today's session. Okay, what if I want to print the type of a? So I can use type of operator, or type of a, something like this. Type of is an operator which is going to return the data type of a variable or a value. So if I run this, so you can see 5 is printed and then number is printed because the type of 5 is number. Let's check for string. Let's say string j. Let's run this. So we are going to get j and type is string. Boolean can have either true or false. So let's try with true. So we are getting true and Boolean. Let's try with null and undefined. Let's try with null. What do you think? What will be the type of A? What will be the type of null? Any idea? Yes, faculties, any idea? Neha ma'am, from this Node.js can only install in Windows 8.1 plus systems. Yes. So I think for this LTS to work, it might require Windows greater than 8.1. Yes, that is possible. You can go with older version of Node if you are still using Windows lesser than 8 or something. Okay. So what will be the type of null here? Let's run this and check. The type we are going to get is object, but how it is possible? It is not possible, right? If we are getting null as type, it does make sense, but we are getting object. Without any context, we are getting object, which is simply not possible. So this is actually a bug in JavaScript. JavaScript developers also know that this is a bug, but for some internal reason, they are not improving this. They are not resolving this, right? So we are getting object, but actually it is a bug. Now, if I write undefined here, then I'll also explain what is the difference between null and undefined. If I write undefined, we are getting value also undefined and type also undefined, which simply makes sense, right? Now, what is the difference between null and undefined? So null you can use when you are sure that this variable is going to hold null all the time. You are pretty sure that this variable holds a null value, a empty value. That time you can write null. But if you are not sure, if you are not sure that probably in future, right, this variable might get some value, but I'm not sure what kind of value it will be storing, right? Can be number, it can be string, it can be anything. So right now I'm not sure. So for that purpose, I can use undefined. Right? I hope the difference is clear. When I'm sure that it is going to hold empty value, null value, you can use null. Not sure, you can use undefined. Now, second very important thing to understand here is you should not assign undefined like this. See, even if you don't assign variable with anything, by default, it is going to be initialized with undefined. So why we should write undefined manually here? There is no need. And also, we should not do this just for good practice. JavaScript developers does not prefer this, right? We manually do not assign variable with undefined keyword, right? By default, it is undefined. I hope variables and data types are clear, right? So now, as I mentioned that control statements, you already know, right? Syntax is also same. For example, if, so you can write if, then here condition. Syntax is also same. Else if, something like that. And else. And for loops also syntax is same. For example, for loop, we are just we will just add this let keyword. So let I equal to 0, I less than some condition, right? I plus plus. And so syntax is also same with other most of the programming languages, right? So let's not discuss these things, right? And let's focus on some other important things instead. So now let's move on to functions. So I'll again get back to this file. I'll comment down everything. And for toggling between comment and uncomment, I am using control/, right? This is a shortcut you can use in VS Code. So now I'll write functions. Okay, now functions, majorly there are two types. There are two categories. One is, you can say, traditional function. And second, you can say function expression. One is traditional function and second is function expression, right? Let's start with traditional function. So traditional function. Okay, so let me write one function. So to write function, we use function keyword in JavaScript. For example, function greet, right? Then parentheses for parameters and arguments, but those things you already know, right? From other programming languages. So here I will just print good morning like this. I'm just printing good morning. Now, how to call this function? You can just write the function name and parentheses. Let's run this file and we can see good morning, right? You can also return something, which is actually a good practice. So instead of directly printing it, you can use something like return good morning. And now to see the output, you can store this function call in a variable. For example, let result is equal to, and then we can print result. Let's run this. We are going to get the same result. This is what traditional function is, right? Now let's see about function expression. Okay, so I will comment this. Now I will write function expression, right? So function expression, basically you have two types again here in function expression. One is anonymous function and second is arrow function. Arrow function is also anonymous function, but let's write it differently. So let's start with anonymous function, right? So anonymous function, right? So anonymous function is a function which does not have any name, right? For example, let's try this greet function, right? So I'll write function and then there are no names to this function. So you can directly write parameters if any, right? And here you can return good morning. This is what a function expression is, an anonymous function is, right? But how to call this function now? Any idea? How can I call this function? Yes, faculties. How can I call this function? Because now there is no name given to this function. Okay, so what you can do, you can put this entire function into one variable. For example, let grid. Something like this. But now it is giving an error. Why so? Why it is giving one error? Cannot redeclare block scoped variable. Okay, but grid I already commented. Change it to where? Again, I have some error. Let's check what it is. Comma is expected. Why it is some weird behavior? I think there are some uncommented lines. No, there are not. Okay, let me try again. Sometimes, yes, VS Code shows this unexpected behavior. Let's try again. Let's return instead of console. Return good morning like this. Let's store this function in a variable called grid. Yes, see the error is gone. The same code I wrote again and the error is gone. So sometimes, yes, VS Code misbehaves, right? Maybe because of the extension that I'm using. For some extension, it might be, but let's ignore this. So see what I did. I created function expression and I put it into one variable. That is what the meaning of function expression is. You create the function and you put it in one variable. But sir, how is it possible to put entire function into a variable? So far, we were putting only values. Now we are putting function. That is what the beauty of JavaScript is. In JavaScript, function is a value. In Java, for some languages, functions are statements. They are functions basically. But in JavaScript, they are values. And if it is values, you can put it in the variable. You can also pass function as argument to another function. Why? Because function is a value in JavaScript. So that you can do. And this is quite helpful. This is quite helpful. Now I will call this function. So how to call this function? Let result is equal to using this variable name. Right. So basically it is promoting, it is following functional programming, right? Where function is a first class citizen, right? Function is acting as a value. So I'll just print the result and I'm getting good morning again. Right. Now let's talk about arrow function, which was introduced in ES6, right? The 6th version of ECMAScript. So let me comment this again. And now arrow function, right? So again, I will write the same thing. Let grid is equal to. Now I will skip the function keyword also. And I will directly write parameters in the parentheses. Then I will write fat arrow, right? Equal to and greater than symbol, angle bracket. And here I will again return good morning. And I will call it the same way. Let result is equal to grid and console log of result. Right, let's run this and you are going to get the same output. Right. Now you can optimize this further. If you have only one line of body, you can skip this parenthesis, this curly braces. So let me remove curly braces. Right. And if that one line is return keyword, you can also omit, you can also get rid of this return keyword. See, in one line, I'm writing this. Right. And also there are parameters, right? There can be A, B, C, something like this. Now, if you have only one parameter, then you can omit that parenthesis as well. Right? So this is how you can optimize arrow function further. And we are going to use arrow functions so many times. Again, it's up to you whether you want to use function expression, anonymous function, arrow function, traditional function. It is up to you. But whenever function as a value is expected, then you must go with function expression. Right? Then you can go with function expression, either anonymous function or this arrow function, anonymous or arrow function. Right? We are going to use it a lot of times in React as well. Right? So this is how function works in JavaScript. Right? I hope it is clear to all. Right? If you guys have any doubt, please you can ask it. Right? Now let's move on to arrays and objects. Right? But till this point, I want confirmation from you. Is it clear to all? Is it spelling of function was wrong? Okay, it can be. We missed that. Where versus let. Yeah, so Kiran ma'am, where you can redeclare the variable, right? And you can reassign the variable. But in case of let, you cannot redeclare. Redeclaration is not possible in case of let, but reassignment is possible. Right? Okay. The functions are clear to all of you. Can I get some confirmation in the chat? Okay, cool. So let's now understand arrays and objects, right? Again, concept of arrays and everything you already know, right? But how it is working in JavaScript, that is the point of discussion. So arrays, right? So how to declare array in JavaScript? You can write let keyword, any variable keyword, right? Let arr is equal to square bracket. You can write values. Now JavaScript arrays are dynamic, so you can write other data types as well, like this. These are arrays in JavaScript. How you can access the values? You can use array of 0. You can use array of 3, like this. If you want to iterate over this array, you can use for loop, right? So you can write let I equal to 0. This is the same for loop that we are using in other languages for array traversing. So I'll quickly write it. I less than array dot length, right? So in JavaScript, we have length property on array that is going to return the size of the array. I plus plus, and I simply want to print this. So I will print array of I. Let's run this and see. From here, we are getting 2 and true. And from this loop, we are getting all 5 array elements, right? So that's enough for now in arrays, right? We are going to explore some methods of arrays, but in later part, right? Now let's see what objects are. So objects are nothing but key value pairs. For example, let obj is equal to curly braces. And now in curly braces, you can write the key value pairs of object. For example, name can be J, age can be 25, and maybe ID can be 1, like this. This object is created. Let me comment the array part. Now, how to access these properties of object? How can I access the name? How can I access age? If I print entire object, I can just write console log of object and the object is printed. But how to access just name, just age, and just ID separately? Any idea? How we can access object properties? Okay, no worries. There are two ways to access object properties. One is dot notation and second is square bracket notation. Let's learn both. Let's learn both. Generally, we use dot notation, but I find square bracket notation more useful. I'll tell you how. First, try with dot notation, right? So if I write obj, sorry, if I write obj dot name, and if I run this, name will be printed, right? If I write obj dot age, age is going to print, right? But let's say I want to use square bracket here. So I cannot write obj square bracket of name. That is not going to work. That is not going to work, right? Instead, you can write this name in double quotes. If you are writing property name as string, then you can access. Now it will work. See, now it is working. But why should we use square bracket then? Just to write some extra thing? We don't think it is preferred, right? It is ideal way, but it is actually. See, now let's understand the difference between them. When you know the property name exactly, then of course you can go with dot notation. But if you want to write expression, if you want to write variable, then you can go with square bracket. For example, I have one variable called my name, and this my name contains name. Now I cannot write obj dot my name variable. I cannot write with dot notation, but I can write it with square bracket notation. So I can write like this, and my name contains what? Name. So name value J will be printed. See, we are getting J again. So if we use square bracket, you can use variables. You can use expressions. Right? That is why we can use square bracket notation. Okay. Do you know that array is also an object? The array that we created here, this is also an object. So if this is an object, there should be two ways to access it. Dot notation and square bracket notation. It might sound confusing, but let's clear that confusion. So before coming to array, what I will do, I will add one more property here. So now below ID, I will add property with maybe 0 and the value can be 0 like this. Now we will say, sir, property name must be string. Yes, it must be string, but it is not the compulsion. You can write numbers also as property. Ideally, it should be string, but you can write numbers also. You can write true false also as property, as key. Right? But if it is number or any other value other than string, you cannot use dot notation. You cannot write obj.0. See, it is already giving an error. This is not possible. So for this case also, you can use square bracket. For this purpose also, you can use square bracket. I can write obj square bracket of 0 and I will get 0. Understanding how useful square bracket notation is and how limitations of dot notation is. Right? Now, arrays are also object, right? And we are using, see, square bracket notation to access it. Now, if it is object, that means there should be some key value pairs. There are actually. See, at 0, we have 2. At 1, we have 4. Right? At 2, we have 6. And we call them index. The key of array object, we call them index. But that is actually a key behind the scene. Right? So now we got object out of this array. We got object out of this array. Right? Now how to access this? See, there is number as a key. If there is number as a key, can you use dot notation? No, you cannot use dot notation. So you must go with square bracket notation. And that is why we write array of 0 like this. That is why we use square bracket notation. Right? So array is nothing different thing. It is object only. But as the key value in the key value pairs, all keys are numbers. They are indexes. That is why we must use square bracket notation. You cannot write array dot 0. You must write array of 0. Array square bracket 0. Right? Understood how array is object and why you can access array values using square bracket. Okay, is it clear? The difference between square bracket and dot notation. Clear to all? Any doubts? Shall we move ahead? Yes, faculties. Can I get some confirmation in the chat? Okay, thank you, Madhvi ma'am. All right. So I know it seems a bit confusing, right? Especially for those who are learning JavaScript for the first time, right? But with little bit of practice, right, and revision, it will make more sense, right? I'll share this code with you on GitHub after today's session. I'll share one GitHub link, GitHub repo link in our WhatsApp group. There you can access all this code. That's why I'm commenting down everything. I'm not removing everything. Whatever code we wrote, right, yesterday also, today also, everything I'm going to share. Fine. So let's comment this down. And next is DOM manipulation, right? But before moving to DOM, let's cover some advanced JavaScript topics, right? Because DOM is related to browser. And let's first do the things that we can do on the local system, the Node.js, right? So let's first understand advanced JavaScript, right? And let's start with rest and spread operator. Okay, so I'll write here, let's start with spread operator. Okay, so let's say you have one array. Let's say array 1, and the values are 2, 4, and 6. Now I want to copy this array. So I can write array 2 is equal to array 1. Can I write like this? Now let's print both the arrays. So first let's print array 1, and second let's print array 2. If you are observing, I am not writing console.log entirely. I'm not writing this. What I'm doing, I'm writing just CL. If I write CL and print and hit enter, I'm getting console.log, but you won't get this, right? The reason is that I have set up the user snippet. See, in this gear icon, manage icon, you can see one option called user snippet, right? You can explore this. Let's not cover that in session, right? Instead, let's focus on the technical part. But the way I am doing this is using this user snippet. You can explore that. Fine. Okay. So I'm printing both the arrays. Let's run this. And I'm getting the output, right? That means two arrays are there now, array 1 and array 2, and both are same. Now, what if I change array 1? If I make any changes to array 1, for example, array 1 of 0, let's make it 100. Right? So from array 1, the first value I changed to 100. Now, what do you think? Will this be reflected in the array 2 also or not? See, I'm again printing array 1 and array 2. So what will be the output? What do you think? 100 will be there in array 2 also or just in array 1? What do you think? It will modify array 2 or not? Array 1 we are manually modifying. But will it modify array 2 or not? That is the question is. Yes, anyone? Okay, so let's try and see what happens, right? Let's see. So see, 100 is updated in both the arrays. 100 is updated in both the arrays. I did not modify array 2. Then also array 2 is getting changed. Why so? Why this behavior? I don't want this. I don't want this. So what happens is in memory, array 1 is stored, right? In memory, array 1 is stored. Now, after this line, what I'm writing, array 2 equal to array 1. So that simply means wherever array 1 is pointing, array 1 is pointing on this particular array. So wherever array 1 is pointing, at same location, I am pointing array 2 also. That means new array is not created in the memory. On the same array, earlier it was only array 1 that was pointing, and now array 2 is also pointing on the same array. That is why if you make any changes to array, definitely it will be reflected in both the variables because there are no two different arrays in the memory. There is only one single array. That is why we are getting this kind of behavior. But I don't want this. I want a fresh copy of array. I want array 2 to be different in memory. Second array should be created. New array should be created. That is where spread operator is useful. Right? So let's comment down these two lines. Okay, so let's create array 2. So let array 2, and now I'm going to use spread operator. What I can write? I can write square bracket and I can write triple dot ARR1. Triple dot is the way you can represent spread operator. It is nothing but a operator. Now that I wrote triple dot array 1 in the square bracket, that means new array will be created in the memory. A new array with name array 2. Right? So then if let's first run this. So I'm getting 246, 246. Now let's change the array 1. Let's modify array 1. And now if we run this again, you can see only array 1 got modified because now there are two separate arrays in the memory. Right? Understood how we can use spread operator and why we can use spread operator to get a fresh copy of array. Right? Now let's discuss about rest operator. So let me comment down everything. So let's say we have one function, rest operator, right? Rest operator. Let's say we have one function. Function maybe add, which is simply taking a and b, and it is returning a plus b. Right? Let's call this let result is equal to add, and let's pass in 5 and 3, and let's print the result. So no rocket science, we are going to get 8, 5 plus 3. Right? Now, instead of 2 values, now there are 3 values. So you can modify your function like that. Right? 5 plus 3 plus 2. So we are going to get 8. Again, nothing much, right? We are just doing the basic stuff. But let's imagine that let's consider that you don't know how many arguments that will be passed to this add function. If user pass in 5 argument, then my add function should return sum of 5 elements. If user pass in 10 argument, 10 numbers, then add function should return sum of those 10 numbers. If I want this kind of functionality, what can I do? Because here I can specify number of parameters, right? But I'm not sure now that how many parameters, how many arguments that this function will receive. So what to write here? That is the question, is what to write here then. So for this purpose, you can use rest operator here. Syntax of spread and rest operator is same, that is triple dot. So instead of ABC, now I can write triple dot and, for example, numbers. Any variable name, for example, numbers. Now this function can expect any number of parameters. Right? We made this function flexible now. Okay. So if I write here 5, 3, 2, if I write 5, if I write 7, if I write 9, any number of argument will be accepted now. Now, how to return sum of this? So see what happens. All the value that I'm passing, it will create one array. It will create one array. So what will happen? The array with name numbers is created now using rest operator. Right? So now we have numbers array. Now we have numbers array. And you probably know how to get sum of all the elements of array. Right? Now you can consider the numbers is an array. So let me show you if there is confusion. Let me show you. Let's say the sum, I am initializing it with 0. Yes, anyone trying to speak? Ma'am, I'm not able to clearly hear you. Okay, it might be by mistake. No worries. Let me know if you have anything to share. Okay. Fine. So I initialized some variable with 0. Right? Now I can use loop. Let I equal to 0, I less than numbers dot length, because now it is just 0. It is just an array. Right? We can do this. But I want to also cover for of loop. Remember, I mentioned one title here, for of loop. So let's traverse this numbers array using for of loop. Can we do that? Okay, let's keep it separate. Let's not mix up the things. Let me write the traditional for loop. Okay, so let I equal to 0, I less than numbers dot length, I plus plus, and the sum will be sum plus numbers of I. Right? And finally, we are going to return sum. So now whatever numbers you pass, you will get the sum. See how flexible it is using rest operator. If I run this, you are getting 31. If you add 2 here, you should get 33. Yes, understood, everyone? Understood rest and spread operator? Is it clear? Yes, is it clear to all? Let's try to cover other advanced JavaScript topic as well, right? And from document object model, we'll keep it for tomorrow, right? So tomorrow, maybe initial 30 or 45 minutes, we'll cover document object model and jQuery. And then after 45 minutes, we'll start with React. So let's complete these many things now. Okay. I hope rest and spread operator is clear. Okay. Thank you, Madhvi ma'am. Fine. So now let's go for of loop. It's a very simple topic, for of loop. So let's just traverse an array using for of loop, right? Let's say you have this array, same array, 2, 4, and 6. And using traditional for loop, we know how to traverse. Now let's see using for of loop how we can. So we can just write for each element. So for let element of ARR, I can just print element. So see, now I'm not using any index kind of thing. Can you see any index, any length property? No. I can directly access elements using for of loop. If I run this, I'm going to get 2, 4, and 6. This is what the for of loop is, right? It is very handy, right? You don't need to know about indexing and nothing like that. You can directly use for of loop. Okay. And now after for of loop, again, let's discuss one small topic called template string. These are the topics that were introduced in the newer version of JavaScript, right? Each version is called as ECMAScript. So in ES6, these are the features that were introduced. So many major features were introduced in ES6. That is why it's very famous version of JavaScript. You might have heard about this ES6, right? Or ES 2015. Now let's see template later. Template later. It is the way to write string a more structured way, right? We'll write the string, but in a formatted way, structured way, right? For example, you have 3 variables. For example, let name, let's skip 2 variables. So let name is J and let age is, let's say 25. Right now, how you can print this? You can write something like my name is, and you can concate this, right, with name. And again, you will write plus operator and you will write here first dot and then space. You will write my age is, again plus operator, and again you will write age and again plus operator, and you will write dot, full stop. See how complex it is. Is it readable? Right now we just have 2 variables. If we have more than 2 variables, it will look more complex. So that's where you can use template literal, right? So instead of writing like this, now I will be using template literal, right? So template literal is denoted by backtick, right? Below escape button in your keyboard, you will see backtick button. Press backtick, and here you can write your string. My name is, and now after my name is, now you want to write a variable. So for that, you can use $sign and curly braces, and here you can write the name of the variable. Right, and you can write my age is, again you get one variable, so use $sign curly braces age, and you can write dot, full stop at the end. See how easy it is to write it like this. Let's run this and see, in both the cases we are going to get the same output, but which is more ideal to use, which is more convenient to use? Template literal, obviously, right? So this was a very small topic and very basic topic, but quite helpful. Okay, after that let's discuss for each method and map method. Now this is very important, right? Especially map method. So let's start with for each method. So for each method again helps us to, traverse through array. These are array methods. So we can iterate through array and we can perform some specific task for each array element. That is the main use of for each and map method, both. Right? So let's say you have this array 2, 4, 6, and 8. Right? Now let's traverse this array using for each method. So what you can write array dot for each. This is a method, right? So I'll write parenthesis. What I wrote, array dot for each. Now this is a method, right? That means it is going to expect some argument. Now for each method expect callback function. That is, it expect entire function. We'll cover callback function in detail in tomorrow's session, maybe next session, whether it is tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Right? So it is expecting a callback function. So let's write arrow function like this, arrow function. Right? Callback function is nothing but a function that is passed as an argument to another function. So see, this function I am passing as an argument to for each function. That is why this function is called as callback function. But detail about this in the next session. Now, here in that callback function, you can write one parameter called as element. Right? That means it is going to get the element in each iteration. First time it is getting 2, second time it will get 4, third time 6, and last time 8. And you can print element if you want. Right? If I run this, I will get 2, 4, 6, and 8. But why should I use this method? What is the use of this? So whenever you want to perform some task on each of the element, right now what we are doing, we are just printing each element. But if you want to perform some task on each element, you can use for each method. If I want to write console log of element plus 1, then what will happen? What will happen? See, all elements are added by 1. Getting it? All elements are now added by 1. So to perform certain tasks on each element, you can use for each. And the same manner you can use map. But what is the difference between them? That I will explain you. So let's do the same thing using map method. Right? So let's say we have same array. But I'll write again. I'll just comment it. Just comment it and I'll write again. Right? So same array I have. Now I will use map method. So array dot map. Again, it takes a callback function. Syntax is also same. Right? And the element will be, the parameter will be element. And again, I can print element. What do you think? Is it going to work? Is it going to work? Let's run and check. Let's run and check. Yes, it is working. It is working just fine. But what is the difference between for each method and map method? Let's understand that. Right? So the difference is for each method does not return. For each method does not return anything. When you want to do some specific task on each element, you can go with for each method. It does not return anything. right? But if we talk about map method, it returns a new array. It returns a new array. For example, instead of printing, if I write something like element plus 1, if I write something like element plus 1, if I run this, nothing will be printed, right? Right now, I'm not using any console statement, but this method is doing something. It is returning a new array where each element is added by 1. Okay, so if it is returning something, can we store it in a variable? Yes, we can. So let's store it in one variable called result array. Right, let me format this document. Okay, and now let's print result array. Let's try to print result array. And we are getting undefined, undefined, undefined. Why? We forgot one thing. We forgot return keyword here. So let me write return element plus 1. Now let's run this and let's check. Yes. See, now we got new array and each element is added by 1 here. That is the difference between for each and map method. For each method does not return anything. If you want to just console out something or some specific task that you want to perform on each element, you can perform it. Right? But it does not return anything. Okay, and here we are getting a new array. We are getting a new array. So what happens is on each element, this callback function will run. First time it will run on 2. When it runs on 2, it will become 3, right? Element plus 1, that means it become 3. So 3 will be pushed to the new array. Next time it will run for 5. So again 5 plus again 4 plus 1, that is 5. So 5 will be pushed into the new array. Okay, now one more thing here to notice is that the original array does not get modified. If I print array, what do you think? Should it get modified? Should it get modified? See, it is still same. So it does not modify original array. This is common for both. For each also does not modify original array. And map also does not modify original array. Clear? Difference between for each and map method. Map method is very useful. We'll use it a lot of times in React. Right, to render list we can use. Also in JavaScript we can use it so many times, right? They are called as higher order functions. They are returning something. Okay, is it clear, everyone? Is for each and map method clear? Do you have any doubts? Please write yes in the chat if it is clear.